I want everybody to know that they can change their life at any time. I want every business to know that once they get back to their origin stories of what they were founded upon, they can reignite themselves, reignite their passions for success.
Hi everyone, Elle Ballard is here today on the Empowered Global Women in Business podcast. And we are actually at the special event of Papadalooza today with my featured speaker, Carrie West. Welcome.
Thanks to you. It's nice to be here.
I'm excited for this conversation, Carrie. So, Carrie Casey West is an author, speaker, and life story coach who uses her entertainment industry experience to support clients with their life and business stories. A well developed, balanced story brings fulfillment and success in business, relationships, and life. She helps people and businesses change the underlying stories that impede their abilities for success. Carrie is a sought after speaker, webinar leader, and author of her book, Life Rewritten, launching in 2025. How exciting! Congratulations on your book.
Thank you. Thank you. It was an interesting journey to say the least.
Tell me about it. Tell us the journey of how did you come to do this work, Carrie?
Yes, thank you. It's a I didn't have a straightforward path in life like some people. They went to college, they studied business and became business people. I had a little bit of a convoluted story. Sometimes I say I've been reincarnated a few times in my own life. So I didn't have a good beginning. I had a very rough childhood, and the thing that saved my life was stories. It's how I kept myself sane and calm, was telling myself stories. As a child, I would tell myself that my real parents were looking for me and they would offer me this life of joy and abundance and happiness. And I would be warm at night and I would have a full belly and everyone would be happy. So that kept me alive through so many challenges. And as I grew and realized that I didn't have a good setup for life, I had to take a different route. So I studied meditation, I went to therapy, I tried every kind of self-help and personal growth tactic I could find. And then lo and behold, I got accepted in film school. And when I went to film school, when we were talking about how stories are formed, how the characters and the plots and the antagonists and the themes and what's the hero's journey, what's the heroine's journey, what are they achieving? The theme is, what are they trying to prove at the end? That love always wins, that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And I realized a big light went off, and I said, oh my God, my life is a story. Am I the protagonist? If I am, then my mom was the antagonist. And I just realized that, holy moly. And so when I took it apart even further, I realized that people would call me and they wanted to know my advice. You always have friends that call you for advice. Well, it seemed that I had this reputation of being the biggest advice giver. And I was unbeknownst to myself, helping them take apart their stories and helping them redesign their stories and rewriting their stories. Because I
Mm.
don't, I've been to therapy, I've been to all these different things. I studied, my undergraduate degree was in psychology. So I had all this training to be a therapist and a psychologist. And then turned south and went to film school of all things, because I always wanted to be a writer. And so I have this very eclectic background, and it just set me up for this whole new world I was going to explore, which was helping people change their stories. Even when I went to work in business, I was a business consultant. And what did I do? I worked with businesses to change their stories. Now, we didn't call it that, business called it something else, change management or operational readiness or whatever they wanted to call it. But when you take it apart, it was changing their stories. It was
Mm.
understanding the characters and their stories and how they interacted with the characters and their stories. and how they moved forward with the characters in their stories. And what's the theme? What are we trying to achieve with this product we're building? What are we trying to do with the business vision? You know, you might call it your vision or your mission statement. That's the theme of your story. If you have a mission statement,
Yeah.
that's what you want. That's the theme of your story. And then everything else just become plots. The plots is product development. How are we actually doing research and development? What's the plot of our story? And so I applied it to my own life, and I built this business around being a speaker. And my theme and my mission is I want everybody to know that they can change their life at any time. I want every business to know that once they get back to their origin stories of what they were founded upon, they can reignite themselves, reignite their passions for success. Or if you want to start a new business, how do you go about doing it? Well, let's take it apart and look at it like a story. What's your theme? What do you want to do? Why did you, of all the things you could have done in the world, why did you pick this product or this service? So it's very empowering, and I don't think I've ever been happier. You know, it's crazy how finding
Beautiful.
your path really.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I love that story. Thank you for sharing. And I love the application of it to business, right? Because it's so connected, our lives with businesses. When we start something, there is always a reason why. We have this big why, we get so excited. But then a lot of the times, or passion get changed, or discouragement and all the obstacles on the way. Now, so I love that you do that for businesses, right? If it's pivoting, if it's launching a new product, but it's all going back to why did we, what is the story, what is the plot? So what kind of, or at what point do you see businesses going through that path?
Every business in the world just went through this 4 years ago with COVID.
Right.
COVID was, in my parlay, an inciting incident.
Yeah.
An inciting incident is in a story is what puts you on your hero's or heroine's journey.
Mm.
Forces you to look at something that's not working, and how are you going to survive and come out the other end new and improved. That's the
Yeah.
inciting incident. And COVID upended the entire world. I mean, look at how we couldn't even get products delivered because supply chains were broken,
Yeah.
shipping and rail were broken. Look at
Mhm.
how offices had to, nobody would have thought about having people work remotely. And this
Yeah.
forced us to saying we got to have people work remotely because we can't have them come into an office. So after years of businesses sitting there going, no, you have to come into the office and you have to come into the office 5 days a week from 8 to 5. All of a sudden, that was shattered. And now we have remote and hybrid workspaces. So, and then you look at industries, look at how the travel industry was completely upended. They still haven't recovered, or they're
Right.
still trying to figure it out. They're changing so many different things on the fly. And a lot of them will say, yes, we figured it out, but they really haven't. They have not gotten back to their pre-COVID, existence, because still a lot of people are having some challenges, and there's a lot of things that they're still dealing with. And by the way, COVID is what really launched me into doing this. I
Mm.
looked at COVID as a chance to really focus on something I wanted to put out in the world. Instead of me always responding to what clients wanted me to do, I wanted to take charge and say, wait a minute, I'm a storyteller. How can I use that passion for storytelling to help other people find their stories, to
Yeah.
find their authentic stories? And I love that you work with women, because women have so much to offer, and yet we still have that story in our head about
Exactly.
who do I think I am? Am I allowed to?
Yep.
Imposter syndrome,
Imposter. Hmm.
saying that, eek, am I good enough to do this? And those are the stories I want to end in the world. If we can end those stories for women, I would be complete.
Oh, I love that. The pen is in your hand is the title. How do you work with clients? And we mentioned women specifically when they think there is no story, when they think that they don't have a story. What do I write about? There are all these stories, climbing Mount Everest, all this impressive, right? And we sometimes compare ourselves to those, right? And then
Yeah.
we look at ourselves and we think there is no story to share.
Yep.
What is your advice?
The first thing I talk to people about is the characters in their life. And the characters are big clues to why we think the way we do. And it started from the time we were born. When we were born, we are a blank slate. We're just a
Yeah,
tiny baby. And we pick up so many story cues and elements from our environment, from our families, from the people around us. We learn to speak our primary language, even, if it's English, Spanish, French, Dutch, whatever our primary language is, that's the first thing we learn. And we
yeah,
learn that from our families. And then we learn about who we are in the world. I grew up with first generation Americans. They were immigrants and they came from the old country. They came from Italy and Eastern Europe. And so my role as a woman was defined. My role as
hmm
a woman, and my mother drilled it into me every day. You will get married and you will have kids and you will take
yeah,
care of a house for your husband. I fought that tooth and nail. And
right,
I'm in a long-term relationship now, but I refuse to get married. He and I have made a pact that we're not going to get married. And I'm good with that.
yeah,
I think every day we choose to be together. We don't need to be married to do that. But it was
oh,
drilled in my head that if
yeah,
I was a wife and a homemaker, I wasn't a valued member of society. And sometimes these stories are generational. So I think a
yeah,
lot of women today, even though they may not have had that story directly, it's in our DNA. And even if you look at the world around us and you look at the challenges in our country of how women are devalued and
hmm
how women are not allowed to make choices and not allowed to do things, we still have to follow what our husband says, or look at in other countries how women are treated. It's still something that we have to acknowledge. And when you can acknowledge it, I'm not saying you have to accept it, but when you can acknowledge it, then you can put the pen in your hand and say, how am I going to address that for me? And part of that is, I'm not saying you have to change the world. I'm not saying you have to change your mother or you have to change how your sisters view things or change how all your friends see things. On the contrary, I'm saying accept how everybody else is, but look at what you can do for yourself.
yeah. Because sometimes I think we are so influenced, right? To your point, we grow up with it, and that's all we know, and it's sometimes hard to get outside of that and see. Because
Yeah,
what if I get judged? What if there are so many what ifs, but that is also that such big cloud that doesn't let us really give that authentic voice and share the world needs to hear, that other women need to hear, right?
yes.
Worldwide.
We feel so safe in our old ways because they're
Yeah,
comfortable. And believe me, even me saying this out loud now, I can even think in my head how I have to couch the words so that I'm safe. I don't want to say something that's going to freak somebody out. Who could I possibly freak out? I'm just talking about my experience and my opinion. You don't
yeah,
have to accept it. You can I'm not trying to force anybody into
yeah.
this. This is what worked for me. And if you're open to it and you want to explore it, then I think it can work more often than not because it's time for us to really embrace our femininity and the power that we have as women.
I want to ask you, in building this business as a woman and this, sharing your story, sharing your passion, how has this experience been for you in terms of building a business on your own terms?
I'm very fortunate in that I've had a lot of support around me. I've somehow, after the rough start I had in life, I have somehow managed to create a nice network of friends and family who support me. And when I have that moment of doubt, which we all do, promise you, I worked with celebrities. They have lots of moments of doubt. I don't care how successful you are, they have
Yeah,
moments. And when you have that, have somebody you can rely on to get you through the doubt. That's the biggest thing. And whether it be a coach or a therapist or a best friend, somebody to help you get through the doubt. And go for it. Write it out. Practice it. I can't tell you how many times I practiced what I wanted to call my talk before I landed on the pen is in your hand. And I wanted that one because it felt empowering. It
Yeah.
felt like I could say to somebody, you're in charge of your story.
Mm.
Because I didn't want to, sometimes I see people go around and say, well, just, it's your fault. Don't blame everybody. And I don't think that's kind. I think we have to have some kindness when working with people and saying, I get it. There's things that happen, stuff happens,
Yeah.
but you can pick up the pen and write something different. You can change that. And it
Mhm.
starts with you, which you would think would be empowering because if you're always working with other people and if they're always in charge of everything, then you don't have the power. But if you can take back your power and know that you can have a different experience, then that's when you can really make headway.
I'm so glad you're doing this work, and thank you for doing this work in the world. Using your own story, but also helping so many others regain that voice,
Yes.
right? And giving them the confidence to share their stories. So as we're closing, if there is anything else you want to mention, and also please tell us how our listeners can find you. Congratulations on your book, A Life
Yeah.
Written. Amazing. And yeah,
Well, you can always find me at carriecasey.west.com, and you can email me at carrie@carriecasey.west.com. And I want everybody to know that we need to hear your voices. We need to see the work you have for the world. We are each individually gifted with a talent that the world needs. And when we can all work on our talents, it just makes the whole group of us better. There isn't any one person that doesn't do better without having the group around them to support them. And we need you.
mhm,
We need each and every one of you.
beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your story today. Please, our listeners, connect with Carrie. Amazing, amazing work. And yeah, thank you for all you do, Carrie. And thank you for joining this conversation with me today. It's such a pleasure meeting you.
You too. Thank you for inviting me and thank you for having me. This was fun. You're lovely.
Thank you so much, Carrie.